U.S. Senate Supreme Court of the United States hearing points to military trials of deep state officials. In a U.S. Senate confirmation hearing held on September 5, Supreme Court nominee Brett Kavanaugh was asked a series of questions that point to future cases involving the legality of military justice being used against U.S. citizens. The military intelligence group QAnon has linked the questioning to an executive order by President Donald Trump that creates a legal basis for military justice being used against deep state officials. In post number 2093, QAnon wrote the following. He begins by referring to the 26-minute mark of a YouTube video. Quote, "Interesting line of questions. Normal? Military law versus criminal law? Think executive order. Think Hillary Rodham Clinton panic. Do you believe in coincidences? You have more than you know. Q." End quote. The linked YouTube video, which mysteriously became unavailable, blocked, showed Senator Lindsey Graham asking Judge Kavanaugh about the legality of the military justice system being used against U.S. citizens who have been colluding with enemy forces. Kavanaugh explained how the Supreme Court has in the past created legal precedents for military justice being applied in such a way. QAnon referred to Trump's executive order issued on December 21, 2017, creating a national emergency in the US due to, quote, "serious human rights abuse and corruption around the world," end quote. The executive order makes clear that all involved in such abuses constitute an unusual and extraordinary threat to US national security. Quote, "I, Donald Trump, President of the United States of America, find that the prevalence and severity of human rights abuse and corruption that have their source in whole or in substantial part outside the United States, such as those committed or directed by persons listed in the annex to this order, have reached such scope and gravity that they threaten the stability of international political and economic systems. The United States seeks to impose tangible and significant consequences on those who commit serious human rights abuse or engage in corruption, as well as to protect the financial system of the United States from abuse by these same persons. I therefore determine that serious human rights abuse and corruption around the world constitute an unusual and extraordinary threat to the national security, foreign policy and economy of the United States, and I hereby declare a national emergency to deal with that threat." End quote. In addition to blocking the financial assets of all that are linked to such abuses, the executive order justifies the military justice system being used against all individuals, including U.S. public officials that participate in subversive acts at a time of a national emergency. In post number 1926, QAnon explicitly linked Trump's executive order with acts of subversion. QAnon begins the post as follows. "Define subversion: the act of subverting, the state of being subverted, especially a systematic attempt to overthrow or undermine a government or political system by persons working secretly from within." QAnon is pointing out that US public officials, both former and present, who are linked to subversive acts can have their financial assets frozen, as stipulated by the December 21, 2017 executive order. An example of subversion is an incriminating August 15, 2016 text by FBI counterintelligence agent Peter Strzok, which explicitly states to another FBI official, Lisa Page, that an insurance plan had been developed by the deep state to prevent Donald Trump from assuming or fulfilling the office of the president. Quote, "I want to believe the path you threw out for consideration in Andy's office, that there's no way he gets elected, but I'm afraid we can't take that risk. It's like an insurance policy in the unlikely event you die before you're 40. End quote. The roles of Strozek and other officials in developing an insurance plan through the concocted Steele dossier used in gaining FISA court warrants is currently under investigation by the House Intelligence and Judiciary Committees. It is what QAnon went on to say in post 1926, which raises the possibility that the military justice system is going to be used against public officials accused of subversion against the incoming Trump administration. QAnon linked and quoted from Trump's March 1st, 2018 amendments to the Manual for Courts Martial. Quote, Section 12, in accordance with Article 33 of the Uniform Code for Military Justice, as amended by Section 5204 of the MJA, the Secretary of Defense, in consultation with the Secretary of Homeland Security, will issue non-binding guidance regarding factors that commanders, convening authorities, staff judge advocates, and judge advocates shall take into account when exercising their duties with respect to the disposition of charges and specifications in the interest of justice and discipline under Article 30 and 34 of the Uniform Code of Military Justice. That guidance will take into account, with appropriate consideration of military requirements, the principles contained in official guidance of the Attorney General to attorneys for the federal government with respect to the disposition of federal criminal cases in accordance with the principle of fair and even-handed administration of federal criminal law. End quote. QAnon is here saying that the military justice system will work with U.S. attorneys such as Utah's John Huber in investigating and prosecuting criminal cases brought against individuals accused of subversion and or linked to the national security threat posed by, quote, serious human rights abuse and corruption around the world, end quote. In post 1926, QAnon next referred to public and corporate officials that have been removed from office, alluding to secret indictments involving them and the construction of new facilities at Guantanamo military prison for the most dangerous or recalcitrant officials. Quote, plus FBI personnel removal, plus Department of Justice personnel removal, plus CIA personnel removal, plus State Department personnel removal, plus White House personnel removal, plus House of Representatives personnel removal, plus US Senate personnel removal, plus chairs, CEOs, VIPs of corporations removal, plus military budget, largest in our history, plus military presence around President of the United States, plus 45,000 sealed indictments. QAnon then links to 3 stories and says, nothing to see here, Q, end quote. What makes QAnon's post particularly significant is the existence of the 45,000 sealed indictments which involve criminal charges against deep state officials accused of subversion and or serious human rights abuse and corruption around the world. As I have shown in a previous article, see link below, the number of sealed criminal cases is extraordinarily high when compared to earlier years, and that a majority of the more than 50,000 sealed cases do involve indictments against deep state officials. From QAnon's recent posts, it is becoming clearer that some of the indictments involve deep state officials such as Strozek being charged with subversion and being tried in military courts. Finally, in post 2093, QAnon points to Hillary Rodham Clinton being in a panic, suggesting that she is also likely to be subjected to military justice for both subversion and involvement in serious human rights abuse and corruption around the world. Since October 28, 2017, QAnon has been dropping breadcrumbs about human rights abuses and corruption by deep state officials that have been subjected to secret grand jury investigations and indictments. The latest series of posts suggests that there is a definite countdown to when the secret indictments will be unsealed, and that the subsequent trials will involve some former public officials being subjected to military justice through courts martials rather than military tribunals as previously thought. The general public will learn for the first time the true extent of the criminal acts of deep state officials when it comes to human rights abuses, corruption around the world, and the effort to subvert the incoming Trump administration. QAnon's breadcrumbs only give a bare outline of facts that will deeply shock the general public as documentary evidence is publicly released for impending criminal and military trials. As to when the sealed indictments will be unsealed, it is worth noting that the reform of the 2018 amendments to the Manual for Courts Martial will take effect on January 1st, 2019. Senator Graham's line of questioning of Judge Kavanaugh suggests that the use of military justice against U.S. civilians is likely to be one of the legal issues that the new addition to the Supreme Court will soon be adjudicating. One of the most significant effects of the looming criminal trials in civilian and military courts of deep state officials is how all this will impact on a decades-long policy of suppressing the public release of advanced technologies associated with secret space programs, one of which QAnon recently credited with shooting down a missile involved in a false flag attack on Hawaii. In addition, over 5,700 patent applications that could revolutionize the transportation and medical industries have been held up and classified due to national security orders by deep state officials. Much more will likely be also revealed about the September 11 false flag attack, the Kennedy assassinations, the hidden history of Antarctica, and the truth about extraterrestrial life. This has been Dr. Michael Sala with exopolitics.org. Latest updates on my website include the audiobook edition of Antarctica's Hidden History, which is now available on Amazon.com or at Audible.com. I will also be appearing as a speaker at the Greater Philadelphia Expo Center on September 29 and 30 of this year. And finally, you can also visit exonews.org to get my exopolitics articles as well as other exopolitics related articles from around the world. Thank you for listening, and aloha.